Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. This is the very first episode with my new broadcasting partner, B2 Studios and Bold Brave TV. If you are a new guest, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for being with us this morning. If you're a longtime listener, I appreciate your patronage. Thanks for following me over here from Voice America to Bold Brave TV. In a very real sense, this is a new adventure. It's a new relationship. It might be an old show, but it's a new endeavor. And I'm going to be talking about next and new challenges and new adventures, if you will, throughout this upcoming episode. So welcome to Finding Certainty. Thanks for being with me here this morning. Really looking forward to sharing with you some of my thoughts today, getting to know you a little bit, and letting you get to know me a little bit as well. I'm very excited about this new partnership with Bold Brave TV. I want to tell you a little bit about the backstory because it's kind of exciting. It's kind of interesting. They actually reached out to me. They did a nationwide search of podcasts and various talk shows, radio shows, and they reached out to me and they said, "We've selected you to take everywhere. We want to put you on Roku TV and Fire TV, and we want to put you on. You're already on syndicated on Spotify and iHeart and Pandora, etc. But we really want to blow you up and take you even further. They're putting us on Amazon, Apple. We're already on Apple and Google podcasts, but the list goes on. And so initially I was a little bit taken back. I didn't know these guys. I didn't know who they were. I actually flew out to New York and met with John Kelly and his partner Nadia, his associate Nadia, and talked to them a little bit about the opportunity. And the more I got to know the team and the management, just everything about Bold Brave TV, I was very, very intrigued and optimistic about this next chapter in the saga that is Finding Certainty. If you're familiar with my show, I've been a host on Voice America for about 3 years now, a little bit over 3 years. Initially, I was a guest on Voice America. At the end of that first show, the host, Frank Hellring, said, you'd be really good at this. Have you ever considered live talk radio? And I said, I hadn't, but it sounded like fun. And he said, if I could get you a meeting with our general manager, Robert Cellino, would you be interested? I said, sure, I'll hear him out. We had a 30-minute appointment. It took several weeks to get with him. He's a very busy man, but we had about a 30-minute appointment. We ended up talking for about 2 hours. And at the end of that conversation, we decided on a show. We talked about a show title. I wanted to do it around certainty. We decided on Finding Certainty. And they gave me a 13-week pilot, as it's called. I didn't know anything about broadcasting. I still had a lot to learn. I continue to learn. There's a lot to learn about live interviews and broadcasting and sponsorships and everything that goes with it. But I embarked on this adventure. I stepped out into the dark and started. Well, 13 weeks later, they offered me a contract for the next year, and then a second year, and then a third year. And then I was contacted by Bold Brave TV about taking our show to the next level. Long story short, here we are. Very excited about this opportunity and about the relationship and about everything that has come together to take Finding Certainty to additional levels and to help get this message of certainty, how to find it, how to develop it, how to really not just discover it, but expand it in our lives. And to do so with the team at B2 Studios and Bold Brave TV. So thank you, John Kelly, Dan, Tom, Nadia, everybody who's worked with me to get us to this point, helped me feel comfortable, answered my questions, and got us over the hump. And so if you're new to Finding Certainty, let me tell you just a little bit about me. So you know who, this is the first show, the first episode, obviously with B2 Studios, but let me tell you just a little bit about me so you know who you're listening to. If you already know me, put up with me for the next minute or two, and we'll get to the rest of the show quickly. Now, I am the oldest of 3 children. I have 2 siblings, both adopted. My brother's from Samoa, my sister's from Korea. We lived in New Zealand when I was a child, and then several years in Utah, and I've been living outside of Utah ever since, about 30 plus years. I've lived in lots of great vacation locations, it seems. Alaska, Portland, Italy, San Diego. We now live in Henderson, Nevada, or Las Vegas, and people give me a hard time. It wasn't intentional, it just worked out that I've lived in places where people like to go on vacation. But I was in the military for 9 years in the Army. We're a veteran-owned company. Certainty Management is our consulting firm. I'll tell you about that. But I majored in English at BYU, Brigham Young University. Thought about going into law, but ended up realizing I was really good at sales. And I was selling during the summers, making hundreds of dollars a day, and realized I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I'll keep doing it. 40 years later, here I am. I've had multiple ventures, worked for multiple employers over the years, owned my own company on more than one occasion. And 5 years ago, I started my own consulting firm, Certainty Management. We now have associates across the country. We have clients in all 50 states. We are growing and expanding in ways I didn't even imagine. We have an extraordinary team. We help our clients as a profitability consulting firm to help them make more and keep more. And we do this in several different ways. I also own Certainty Global together with Frank Hellring and Andy Tenney. And I own another company named Certainty Holdings. So long story short, we've learned a lot over the last several years. I grew up in a really incredible family, phenomenal parents. I'm married with 5 children, 18 to 26. Love of my life, Tesha Ann Laing is my best friend and my partner. So that's enough about me. I explained how the show started, and let me explain how these monologues got going, because originally I just was doing interviews. Every week I do an interview, and you'll hear those here on Bold Brave TV as well. But the first week of each month, first Wednesday in this case, now that the shows are Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, the first show I do a monologue. And I've been working my way through the alphabet. If you listen to my past shows, you will have heard me talk about A is for accountability, and B is for balance, and C is for composure, D is for discipline. The list goes on. These are topics that illustrate, I believe, characteristics and approaches to finding more certainty in your life. Well, that is the purpose of this show, is how to do exactly that. How do we find this elusive sometimes, but so attractive and so needed, and just this principle that is so important of certainty? Well, that's what these monologues focus on. That's what our guests focus on. Every guest that you'll hear here on Bold Brave TV is another guest that illustrates through their life and through their career the value of certainty in their lives and how to acquire it, how to achieve it. That's what we're focused on here at Finding Certainty. So let's jump into the topic. Today is my monologue, and I'm up to the letter N in the alphabet. Last month I talked about M is for momentum. How do you achieve momentum in your life, and how does momentum contribute to certainty? Well, now I'm going to be talking about the word next. It's kind of an odd one. I struggled a little bit with N is for what? N is for, natural talent. N is for nexus. And I considered several different words. But the more I thought about it, especially with this new relationship and this new show, I thought the word next is a really important word when it comes to developing certainty in our lives. And there's a lot of different elements of it. There's a lot of different ways to look at the word next. And so I thought I'd share some thoughts with you today. the first thing that came to mind for me as I thought about N is for next is what do we do? How do we move on and move forward when we deal with a crisis or a loss in our lives? That's a tough one, right? How do we recover? How do we pick ourselves up and keep moving forward when maybe we have had the rug pulled out from under us? How do we ask ourselves what's next? And how do we look forward to what's next? Because it's not an easy question to answer. To this point, my wife and I were just in Utah, Salt Lake City, because her sister-in-law passed away. Her sister-in-law, Delynn, Delynn Thomas, she has been struggling and fighting breast cancer for the last year, but we thought she was doing well. She was going through treatment and had surgery planned and some other things, but we thought she was making headway. And then out of the blue, one morning about 3 weeks ago, she had a cardiac arrest and she passed away. Everyone in the family was just devastated, right? We did not see this coming. We were hopeful for her recovery. She was making headway. And suddenly she was gone. You know, life is fleeting, right? And that question of what do we do next when a loss like this occurs, which I think most of us have been through, how do we move forward? How do we move forward to what is next? What do we do next after that loss? And oftentimes I think that question and how we answer that question determines not only the future of our own lives, but it determines how we honor those who are gone and how we move forward with purpose, maybe even in their name, right, in their memory. I think that's one important thing to remember. I have another friend who lost his wife, and this was a few years ago, and he just thought, I'll never get married again. But after a while, after some grieving and after some reflection, he said, she wouldn't be happy if I was alone the rest of my life, if I wasn't happy, if I was miserable, if I was grieving, I was traumatized. He said, my wife would not want that for me. And he's now happily remarried. I think it's important that we look not only at our future and those around us, but those we are remembering, that we do honor them, that we do move forward with purpose, that we don't lose ourselves in the grief or the tragedy or the devastation, that so much so that we become immobilized and that we miss out on the rest of our life and the contribution we could make, the good we can do, the certainty we can create in others' lives. I mean, Daniel, my brother-in-law, who just lost his wife, I can't even imagine what he's going through, but he has 4 daughters. He immediately said to himself, he talked about this at the funeral, he said, I can't give up. I have to keep going for them. And he needs to keep moving forward for himself as well. His wife, Delynn, who was an extraordinary mother, an amazing spouse, amazing family member, just an incredible person. She lived life to the fullest. And she and Daniel, they traveled the world. They rebuilt these old Land Cruisers together. They really sucked the marrow out of life as a couple. I was always inspired by them. And I know she wouldn't want him to stop. She wouldn't want him to change, even though he's grieving now and he suffered a terrible loss. I know she wouldn't want him to give up. And so that's the question. What do we do next? How do we move forward? The main thing to remember, in my opinion, is that we need to move forward, whatever the cost, however difficult it is, even if it takes a little bit of time. I'm not saying you go out and start dating the week after your spouse passes away, but don't be opposed to dating someday, eventually, considering new opportunities, new relationships, considering even another marriage, another future that's different perhaps than what you had planned on or were looking forward to, but could still be good. Now, when hardship does strike, it's hard, right? Um, but in our faith, the funeral or the celebration of life, while it's a sad event and everybody was sad, it was also a celebration. It truly is a celebration of life. We believe that we'll see her again. We believe this is just a temporary separation. She's waiting for us. I said at one point, she's better than all of us. She was ready to move forward to the next step in her life, and it's just it hurts right now, but she's waiting. She's waiting to see us. She's waiting to see you guys. She's just out of reach for a little while. And I think part of moving forward and part of asking next, whether it's a tragedy or whatever the case might be, is choosing to see the benefits and the upside, seeing the glass is half full, seeing the opportunities that exist, and not giving up. Right? There are a lot of little miracles that happened. Just a really neat one that enabled them to have her burial right below their home, where they can look down on the sepulcher and the cemetery. They live right above it. It was completely sold out, has been for several years, but through a miracle, something happened and they were able to get a place for her. The girls can even walk down the hill and go visit their mom, say hi. And I think that's another reminder, while we're going through tragedies, as we're asking what's next, is to look for the miracles, look for the lessons, look for the silver lining, if you will, on the cloud that might be dark. Look for meaning, look for help, look for God's hand in the experience. Look to the future, right? For many years, I've talked about how there's 2020 foresight, where we look forward and prepare for things. There's 2020 hindsight, where we look back on and learn from things. But what about mid-sight? I think 2020 mid-sight, where we step back and look for the good within the trial, within the experience. That might be the hardest thing to do, but it's also one of the most valuable things to do, because we're looking at it saying, okay, what's next? What can I learn today? How can I get through this and not just thrive, not just survive, but actually thrive through the process? It can make an amazing difference in how we move forward. Okay, so I know we're supposed to take a break here at one point. They've got 2 or 3 breaks they want me to do. Do you want to pause now, Mr. Sound Engineer, or should we keep going?
Sure,
I'll
sure.
keep
Yeah,
going.
we can take a pause right now. It's up to you.
Okay, let's take a break. I know you want to do a couple of them, and this is probably a good spot to do so. I'm back. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being with me here on Finding Certainty. We're talking about how do we move forward? How do we ask ourselves and make plans and preparations for what's next, especially after a tragedy? One of the lessons I learned years ago is from Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And he talked about the power of a paradigm shift. And really what that is it's not just feeling differently, but it's actually seeing a situation differently. Now that can happen passively, it can happen subconsciously, sometimes it's forced upon us. But I believe there is real power and real certainty in our lives when we do this proactively, when we choose to, as I was saying, have this 2020 mid-sight. We choose to step back and look at the situation. I think my brother-in-law Daniel Thomas, he seems to have done a good job at that. While he's devastated over the loss of his wife, he was able to step back and look at his kids. He took his daughter to a hockey game last week. He's forcing himself, which you have to do sometimes, to step back and ask questions and see the big picture, see the pros and the cons, not just the hard parts, but the good parts. See the future, even if that's just one step at a time. And sometimes that's all you can do. You can't see beyond the next day or the next week or the next month. You just have to take a step at a time. Sometimes we just put our head down and keep trudging forward. But the more of that we do, the more our paradigm shifts, the more we see things differently, and ultimately we feel differently. It's fear that oftentimes keeps us from doing this, keeps us from moving forward. I always ask my salespeople, what do you think is the biggest fear? And they list different things, fear of the dark, fear of deep water, fear of public speaking. That's a big one for a lot of people. It was Jay Leno that said most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I always thought that was funny, but there's the fear of dying, right? But ultimately, the biggest fear, and all of these illustrate this, but the biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. Why is that? That's why we're afraid of the dark, because we don't know what's out there. Deep water, we don't know what's down there. We, afraid of death. We don't know what's going to happen next. Is it going to hurt, right? But it's the fear of the unknown, what's coming next, that makes many of us hesitate, settle, and even avoid risks. It's the fear of what we can't see that keeps us from moving forward. So how do we overcome that? Right? We definitely need to. We cannot live our lives in fear if we ever want to truly embrace certainty in our lives. I think the first thing is to have faith and trust that what's next will work out. It may not be perfect. We might skin our knees. We might stumble and fall. But as long as we fail forward, as they say, pick ourselves back up, keep trying, have faith that we can do it, it'll work out. And it's a great first step, if you will, for overcoming fear of the unknown in our lives. A second step, I believe, is collaboration. We don't have to do it alone, right? I'm incredibly grateful for my team at Certainty Management: Victoria Foster, Jill McCauley, Andy Tenney, Frank Hellring, Brian Pointer, Liz Deal. These are extraordinary people. They say if you're the smartest person in the room, you should fire everybody. I don't know about that, but I understand the sentiment. You should be surrounding yourselves with people that are better than you. And I have done exactly that at our company, Certainty Management. But when you have collaboration, you have teamwork, you have a tribe, you don't have to do it all by yourself. And if you can learn to delegate and other things and work together well, you can overcome fear of the unknown. You can overcome challenges because you're not bearing that load by yourself. As part and parcel with that, I believe you have to look for mentors, look for people who have been down that path before you, and they know what's next. They know what's around the corner. They can help you have shortcuts and not make the same mistakes that they did, right? And so mentors are an incredibly important part of your team. Very grateful for mentors that I have, like Rob Hagan and Tom Gazaway, Marlon Dubetz, Rocky Brew, my parents, John and Sue Laing. I mean, The list goes on and on. Frank Hellring is my business partner in Certainty Global, but I consider him a mentor. John Santoyo, Ken York, the list goes on. I think you have to have that. You have to have mentors and you have to have teamwork if you want to succeed at anything. Think about parenting. I mean, most people who embark on parenthood have a team. They have a father and a mother, or a mother. They have a team. They have a partnership. And otherwise, I think parenthood would be too frightening to even consider. I look at people who are single parents, like my partner and our chief operating officer, Victoria Foster. She's a single mom, and she is an absolute rock star. She is the bionic woman. I think any single parent who's raising kids by their own, without that support, hopefully they have a network, hopefully they have family or friends that are supporting them, but they are incredible because they are shouldering that load to a great degree on their own. And I couldn't respect them more. If you are a single parent out there trying to find certainty, trying to find your way for your kids, my hat is off to you. And I married a widow with 3 children myself. I went from 0 children to 4 in a year. We have 2 boys together. I have 5 children now. And their mother, Emily, was a rock star. She was the bionic woman. She was a widow with 3 kids, 4, 3, and 1. And I couldn't respect a single mom like that any more than I do. The next principle, if you will, of overcoming fear is recalculation, right? You can't just make a plan and implement it more often than not. You have to recalculate because you're going to run into hurdles and objections. You're going to make mistakes. You're learning as you go. Sometimes you're taken advantage of. Sometimes the economy shifts. Sometimes your vendor goes out of business. I mean, there's 101 different ways where your plan that you had in your mind, that 2020 foresight, doesn't unfold the way you thought it would. We've recalculated 100 times with our company, Certainty Management, our JV technology firm, Certainty Global. We continue to recalculate every single day. When I talked about momentum in my monologue last month, that was one of the steps, is recalculation. It's not only a way to have momentum, and it's not only a way to truly succeed, but it is a way to overcome fear. Know that it's out there. It's going to hit you in the face sometimes. Sometimes it broadsides you, but you just recalculate. You pick yourself up, you fell forward, and you don't give up. So, ultimately, when it comes to overcoming fear, oftentimes we just have to step out into the dark. Most of the time, we have to step into the dark. And we don't know what's out there. I think of Indiana Jones and I think it was the search for the Holy Grail, and he sees a chasm in front of him, this dark pit, this drop off, and he's told to just have faith, to step out into the dark. And he does exactly that, and he finds out there is a path. He just didn't see it, right? The path was not easily visible, and that is often the case for us. But when we step out in the dark, we have a good tribe, a team, we have good mentors. We know we're going to have to recalculate, and we're prepared to do so in marriage, in parenting, in business, in our personal lives. If we have that perspective, then we can do it. And more often than not, it's not a drop-off. It's just a little bit scary. It's just that monster in the closet that really wasn't there. And we can do extraordinary things. I wish I'd done certainty 40 years ago, 20 years ago at least. I wish I'd started our company then, but it was comfortable with a salary or benefits or the familiar. I was afraid of the unknown. And I wish I'd stepped out into the dark sooner and launched this extraordinary experience that we're having with so many opportunities to not just make income, but make a difference, to not just do business, but do good. It's an incredible experience, and I encourage anyone who's afraid to do it to go for it. And if you don't want to do it by yourself, come do it with us. Reach out to us at Certainty Management. Look us up at certaintyteam.com. We have an opportunity for you to be in business for yourself, but not completely by yourself. We can We can be your mentor. We can help fast track your success. We've got a century of experience on our management team combined that we have put together what we call the best sales job in town, but I won't go there right now. But we're up against another break. Real quick, give you a chance for you to look at our advertisers, for them to look at you. Thanks for being with me here on Finding Certainty. Don't go away. We're going to talk more about how do we find certainty, and when what we're considering next is a business. I want to go into a little bit more detail about that. When we're starting new ventures, how do we succeed at them? How do we build upon these steps I've talked about having faith and teamwork and mentorship, and then recalculating? There's a little bit more we can talk about. I'm going to share a couple of great examples, and we will be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Here with Patrick Laing on Finding Certainty here at my new broadcasting partner, B2 Studios, otherwise known as Bold Brave TV. You know, this partnership with them, as I said earlier in the show, is a bit of a step out into the dark for me and for our company. It was a completely unknown relationship that reached out to us, offered me the chance to expand our show. And honestly, when you get those kind of calls, at first you think they might be scammy. You don't know what they're looking for. You don't know if it's really everything it's cracked up to be, and sometimes it's not. Right? You have to be careful. You have to vet things. You have to do your due diligence and so forth. I literally flew out to New York, as I said, and met with John and Nadia and got a feel for them. I like to shake hands and look people in the eye. And did a little bit of research before we decided to move forward with this. But, we have to do that. We have to do that in business, in ventures. We look at new opportunities on almost a daily basis. We're constantly, at our company, Certainty Management, we're constantly looking for ways to help our clients to make more and to keep more, to improve their profitability. And we get invitations to represent products, to attend conferences, and so forth and so on. And, we turn down a lot of them. We literally probably accept about 1% of the offerings. But I have a principle or a rule that I don't just ignore anything. I don't turn down any opportunity to speak, for example. I don't care if there's 5 people in the room. I don't know who those 5 people are. And you never know who will be there, who will hear you. So if I'm invited to be on a podcast or speak on a stage at church, it doesn't matter. I always accept those opportunities if I'm able to, if my schedule will allow. The same thing goes for creativity, for new opportunities. We have to be open to what comes across our plate or across our desk. If we are closed-minded and if we have blinders on, we're going to miss out on opportunities. I'll give you a good example. I was invited to attend a conference here in Las Vegas about a month ago. In fact, I was told I was receiving an award, a Business Leadership and Excellence in Leadership Award. And to this day, I don't know who nominated me. I have no idea how they got my name, but they reached out to me and invited me to attend and said I was, 1, going to receive this award, and 2, going to speak on a panel. And honestly, I thought it was a total scam to begin with. But I did some research. I asked around. I looked into the company, and they're the real deal. And I said, okay, I'll be there. Well, I'm very glad I did, because not only did I get to speak on a panel about strategic partnership, they did present an award. If you're watching the video, it's on the wall behind me. Extraordinary people. I mean, it was a really well done conference. CXO 2.0. They do one in Vegas, one in Dubai, and one in Singapore each year. I was very impressed. And I almost passed. It wasn't the best timing wise for me. I almost passed on the opportunity. I'm really grateful that I didn't. In fact, I made some connections there that continue. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow on a business trip to Austin, Texas to meet with one of the gentlemen I met at that conference that I think we're going to do a lot of business with in some really just encouraging ways. So, I bring that up because I think we have to be open. We have to be willing to take on new roles, new challenges, consider new relationships and new opportunities. We have to, I'm not saying have blind faith. I'm not saying to jump into things blindly. Do your due diligence, right? Take the time to explore opportunities, but do exactly that. Right? Sometimes we just have to take our blinders off. I tell my team all the time, don't just try to sell one product to one person and take the blinders off. Look at the multiple ways in which you may be able to help them and serve them. Not only how to help them, but who do they know? How to help those they associate with? Do they serve on a nonprofit? Are they part of a church? Are they involved with the city? Or do they maybe they coach their kids' sports team? There's multiple ways that we can help them with our company. And part of the secret to doing so is to take those blinders off and expand your vision. My parents have a sign on it's in their bathroom at their house that says "Reach Up," and it's talking about looking to God, looking heavenward. But I think it also applies in our own lives for looking up and looking forward and having an abundant mindset rather than just a scarcity one. Sometimes we do have to recalculate. We do have to make significant shifts. I mean, back in about 1996, 97, Apple was nearing bankruptcy. If you can imagine, they're $1 trillion company now. But before that time, before Steve Jobs returned to reinvent the company, they were nearing bankruptcy. They made a major shift, and their next became the iPhone, the iPad, and like I said, $1 trillion enterprise. They were willing to take the blinders off, right? Willing to consider new opportunities. Credit to Steve Jobs for being a visionary leader who did exactly that and who surrounded himself with the tribe, the mentors, and so forth that helped them accomplish it. And it's truly one of the business success stories of the ages. I think of, there's a lot of examples of that. I'm a fan of Elon Musk, like him or hate him. I know there's a division these days of opinions, but long before he got involved in politics, I always appreciated his approach to business. SpaceX and PayPal and Tesla and everything. He's one of those entrepreneurs, I believe, that is continually asking what's next, right? In our company, we constantly ask, how can we not just make income, but make a difference? Right? We want to not just do business, but do good. And so we're constantly asking that question. I think Elon Musk continues to ask himself questions. What's the next big breakthrough? Is it AI? Is it crypto? Is it healthcare? If you can do that, not just ask what's next, but ask, how can I be involved in what's next? How can I participate in it and benefit from it? Not only does that, it's a great way to overcome fear and achieve success, but I believe it's a great way to achieve fulfillment and satisfaction in your life. It's truly a great way when you continue to ask, what's next? What's coming down the pipe or down the pipeline? What's coming down the pike, as they say, sorry. I think that if you can look for trends, look for patterns, obviously as an investor, we want to do that. As a business owner, we want to do that. But as an individual, I think not only can we benefit financially, but just being involved in the next trend, the next breakthrough can be very exciting, be very fulfilling. And it is one way without question, that we can create more certainty in our lives. So, President Trump, everything that's going on there, whether you like him or you don't, I know a lot of us are asking, what's next, right? Good or bad? I think many of us are excited about what he's doing and seeing some of the direction the country is going, and others are more reticent. But he is another example of someone who is constantly looking at, asking, and saying, what's next? One of the lessons I taught, in fact, my very first monologue that I gave, actually, it wasn't my first one, it was my third one, but that was because I had to do one on accident when my guest didn't show up last minute a couple of years ago in June, and I gave a monologue with no preparation on 3 ways to find more certainty in your life. You can find it if you go back, look at one of the podcast channels and see it in June of 2000, I guess it would have been 2023. I did another one on gratitude that November, but then I enjoyed it so much. I liked having more. I have more to say, and I liked being able to have the full hour, that I decided to start this series of monologues in January. And the very first one I did, as I said before, was on accountability. A is for accountability. And in that monologue, I talked about one of my favorite books and one of my favorite management principles called the Oz Principle. In the Oz Principle, it teaches about the characters from The Wizard of Oz, right? It talked about the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Lion, and of course Dorothy and her little dog Toto. Well, all of them banded together or traveling down the yellow brick road, going to the city of Oz to find the great and powerful Oz. For what purpose? They were going there to get him to fix their problems for them. And as the story turns out, we come to find that the Lion shows courage multiple times. He wanted courage, but he shows that he did have it already. The Scarecrow obviously had a brain. He figured out several different situations and different challenges, and he oftentimes was the one who figured out the answer. The Tin Man obviously had a heart. He was so emotional, he rested himself a couple of times because he cried so much. And then Dorothy, at the end of the tale, we find she's been wearing the shoes the entire time that could take her home, the red slippers. And so the moral of the story is that we have it within us oftentimes to achieve our own successes, to overcome our own problems, to find certainty in our lives. Now, it helps if you're in a team like they were. It helps when you have mentors. It helps when you realize and understand and are willing to recalculate. But it's a true principle. They say one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves to keep from falling into a victim pattern or victim stance, the most important question we can ask ourselves is, what else can I do? And that doesn't mean you don't ask for help. It's not being a victim to admit you need help, admit you need a team. But what else can I do? You see the problem, you own it, and then you go after it. You go do it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about faith and family, because it is a principle and a piece of this principle of what's next. We always ask, what's next for my kids? Right? What's next for our marriage? How do we get there? We've talked a little bit about tragedy, talked a little bit about business. I want to talk about family. And because if we don't have certainty in our family, I think everything else struggles, right? If we're struggling in our marriage, our relationships, our parenting with our kids, that kind of puts a taint on everything, and it makes it that much more difficult. So we're going to go to break again. As soon as we're back, I'm going to talk a little bit about faith, family, raising kids. I mean, really talk about the future in some of the areas that are most important in our lives. Don't go away. You're listening to Patrick Laing on Finding Certainty. I appreciate you spending your time with me. If you've stayed this long, you're either a glutton for punishment or you're enjoying it. I hope it's the latter, but don't go away. We'll be right back in just a few seconds here. Thanks. And we're back. You're listening to Finding Certainty. I'm Patrick Laing, your host. This is our very first episode on Bold Brave TV. You know, I decided to do my monologue on N is for next, because this is the next chapter, if you will, in our show. We've got some really exciting things happening with our business. We're very excited about what's coming next. I've talked a little bit about tragedy and how to overcome fear, business, ventures. I want to talk about family and parenting if I can, because I believe these are the most important areas that we can focus on. So, my wife and I, my children's mother, Emily, we raised 5 children. I became a father, as I said, to 3 little children. Their father had passed away. Our youngest, in fact, died in November. Her father died in November of cancer, and she was born in April. Her name is Brighton. She was the bright spot in an otherwise dark time. And so I went from 0 to 4 in a year. We have 2 boys together, so I eventually had 5. And kind of baptism by fire, right? But I remember from a very young age, even when they were just little, one of the main things I wanted our kids to acquire in their lives was I wanted them to be confident. I wanted them to look forward to what was next and what was coming down the pike in their lives and not be afraid, right? I wanted them to be optimistic. I wanted them to be, I'm an eternal optimist. I was hoping some of that would rub off on them. But I remember really wanting them to be confident. And part of that was that I didn't feel very confident as a young kid. I didn't have the best clothes I wish I did. I didn't always say the right things. I mean, we all go through those awkward teenage years. But I remember not feeling that way and hoping that my kids would. I have a very clear memory of my son, who's now 21, when he was about 5. We were at McDonald's, and he wanted to exchange his Happy Meal. He did not like his prize. So not the meal, but the prize. And so he said, "Dad, will you go tell them I want a different prize?" And I said, "Well, if you want to do it, you got to go ask him." And he said, No, I can't do that. I said, "Yes, you can. If you want to swap your prize, it's not very hard. Just go up and ask him." And he shook his head, and I finally convinced him that he should. And I can still remember this short little kid who was shorter than the counter walking up. "Can I exchange my prize for my Happy Meal?" Holding his hand up. They couldn't even see him. They could see this hand holding the prize up. And to his credit, he explained himself. They listened. They gave him a new prize. And he came back victorious. Right? He was so excited. Well, there are a lot of experiences raising our kids. Are we trying to instill those skills? That confidence, the ability to overcome the fear of the unknown. That's just one. To their credit, they're extraordinary. I have a great mother. We were married for 9 years, ended up getting divorced, but now I've been remarried for 13 years. I have an amazing bonus mom in my wife, Tesha. But our kids have gone on to do some great things. We have 4 scholarship recipients, 2 Division I athletes, an amazing, talented. Our youngest is he fights wildfires in Oregon. He's an extreme sports, just incredible athlete, mountain biking, cliff jumping, snowboarding, etc. I'm so proud of my kids. But it's not just about having a child. It's about what you do next, how you raise them, how you teach them, how you inspire them to approach life with that attitude, right? What's next? And bring it on, right? With my salespeople, I tell them just say, yes, no, next. It doesn't matter if you get a no. Just get a yes, a no, and then say next. Same thing with our kids. Very proud of what they've achieved. My oldest got a full ride scholarship to Wellesley College in Boston. She's in dental school now. My son is a diver for Cal State, Division I diver. My daughter was a tumbler, a gymnast for the Oregon Ducks. Our oldest son is a brilliant double major in math and physics. He works for a laser company now. As I said, our youngest is finding his way as well. But when I talk about our kids, I think there's a very important lesson. I want to share this with you before we run out of time. And that is that we make the danger when we're talking about next, that we're constantly looking forward and we forget to remember to be present. One of the best books I've read is a book called The Present. It's about how the greatest gift we can give to our loved ones and those around us is to be present, to be off our phone, to be engaged, look them in the eyes, and be present. It's a book by an author named Spencer Johnson. Well, one of the ways I think we helped our kids, and one of the lessons we tried to teach them, is to do exactly that, to be present, right? Well, sometimes we didn't do it as well. Sometimes we could get off our phone and do a much better job. But having that balance and having that ability to focus on the here and now, not just the tomorrow, not just what's next, but what is here, what is staring us in the face. That is another principle, I believe, for finding certainty and even joy in our lives. We all have heard the adage, right? There's nobody ever wish they spent more time at the office when they're on their deathbed, right? We've heard the saying, you never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul to the cemetery, right? I believe this principle is critical to finding certainty in our lives. That's why I take my wife on a date every Friday night. Even if we don't feel up to it, we go and do something. That's why I try to take her on a vacation at least once every 3 or 4 months. Might be something cheap, go visit family, get away for a weekend. It might be something more elaborate, like a trip, a vacation, a cruise or something. But finding certainty in the moment is being present for those we care about is one of the most important principles I know of. And so in a sense, it's to forget about next, right? Or at the very least, remember what's next to grow relationship. What can I do today, right in this moment, to build on our relationship? If it's important to you, we have to find balance. We have to be grateful for the here and now. My first monologue was on certainty, and then on gratitude, and then I talked about accountability. And as I said, in February of last year, I did B is for balance. We have to be willing to embrace opportunities and to step into the dark and to jump sometimes, right? To not be afraid. Sometimes it's crazy. Sometimes it sounds crazy. Sometimes it's just spontaneous and off the cuff, but it rarely goes wrong in my experience. I'm not saying about doing something stupid like robbing a bank or something. I'm talking about in life. Funniest story, my wife and I went on this little 4-day cruise of the Mexican Riviera. It cost us $280. I had this great travel service that saved us a lot of money. And on that cruise, it was only 4 days, 5 days, 4 nights. But I got so much done in the 2 days we were at sea. I came home and I said to my wife, I said, man, we should see what else is out there. Let's find something longer. I bet I could get a lot done if we had more days at sea. Well, we found this cruise from Miami to Barcelona, 12 days at sea, for less than $1,000. And we jumped on it. We literally drove home from our Mexican Riviera cruise from LA, did laundry, packed our bags, left the next day. Had to find someone to watch the cats, but it was such a great experience. I got a lot done on the cruise. We just had a great time together. Got to go to Barcelona, rode the train up to Paris. We celebrated Valentine's on the boat and my birthday in Paris. And it was because we were willing to jump, to take advantage of an opportunity. It was with no notice, right? No planning. I'm grateful to my wife that she was willing to do that. I live my life like that. And I believe if you're willing to do that in your own life, you'll be grateful that you did too. You'll see more success, you'll build more relationships, you'll have more memories, you'll have more experiences. So be willing to act quickly. Say yes to life's opportunities. It can make all the difference in the world. It helps that I can work from anywhere and that the kids are all grown up, and we know there's cycles of life. So what's next for you? What's next in your life? Are you facing a big decision, a turning point, a challenge? Are you going to approach it with fear and a scarcity mindset? Or are you going to approach it with faith and an abundance mindset. Surround yourself with a good team. They say you become the sum total of the 5 people you spend most time with. If you don't like those 5 people and where they're headed and how they think, find 5 more. Join a networking group. Join a mentorship group. Go join Toastmasters or something like that. But surround yourself with a tribe that will help you get there, and mentors that will help shorten the road. Remember, next isn't something to fear. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow, to change, to become more. And it's extraordinary. You got to step into the dark. You got to do it sooner than later. Don't wait for so many years like I did to start our company. I wish I'd done it 20 years ago. You will rarely regret it if you step into the dark and do so sooner than later. Coming up on our show next week, I have a really special guest, Mr. Mike Popovich. He's the founder of a new social media platform called Social Goats. Think about goats like Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, right? If you'd like to learn more about a way where influencers can 10x their income, with even 1% of their fans, they can 10x their income. And even their subscribers share in the revenue of that platform. Don't miss my episode next week, next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, where we will hear from Mike Popovich. Also, the next week I have Vinny Pacifico. He's a huge WWE wrestler. He's getting a lot of press lately. He's going to be talking about his story the week after that. I believe it's the next week or maybe the week after. We have Tyler Watson coming. He's the author of a book called The Alignment Effect. This is a way to accomplish what you want to in your life, to overcome habits, achieve success, improve your health, and do so in minutes instead of years. Those are the kind of guests that we're going to be having here on Finding Certainty. So very excited about this next chapter in our story. This next partnership, this new relationship, this new adventure. I'm excited about what's next. I hope you are too. And if you aren't, try to go back and listen to this episode. Listen to some of the keys and the secrets so that you can. Because you should. The glass is half full, not half empty. It's all comes down to your perspective. But these are principles that are absolutely true. And not only do they work, but they create ripple effects in our lives. They create, lately I'm saying it's not just ripple effects or mushroom effects. It's an avalanche. It's like a snowball that starts rolling down a hill and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I told you I went to that conference. I wasn't so sure about it. They said they were going to give me an award. So I said, okay, I'll show up. Made these extraordinary relationships. And then they even asked me to be a keynote speaker at their next conference in Dubai. I'm going to be on 4 panels in Dubai and be a keynote speaker about our energy optimization service that can help literally create all the energy needed for the hyperscale AI data centers out there. I'm out of time, guys. Thanks for being with me today. Hopefully this was helpful. I wish you the very best. Certainty can be had. It is out there. You can find it. We can help. And I wish you the very best. Thanks for being with us today, and bye for now.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.